Share this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Freedom Friday.
Hello.
Today, our topic is the weavers that know their web. So my beautiful guests today are Jenny and Sandra. So Sandra of The Living Source and Jenny of Turning Point Chi. Would you like to introduce yourselves for a little minute before we dive in? Whoever wants to go first.
Oh, wow. So yeah, it's just such a pleasure to be with the two of you. And I already feel the energy weaving. So I'm Sandra Lewis, and I am a clinical psychologist and personal energy strategist for high achieving, heart-led women who are determined to make a difference in the world and need to get out of exhaustion so they can make it happen. So I'm very excited to be here. Yeah.
Gorgeous. And I'm Jenny Merdinger, and I'm with Turning Point Chi and the Real Women, Real Healing Facebook group. I'm guiding women out of exhaustion and away from their physical and emotional conditions and back to the energy that they want to live the lives that they are dreaming about.
Yeah. Beautiful. So the three of us are interconnected anyway, but especially because we all trained under Grandmaster Nanlu. So the message and the essence of our training, we've been integrating through our own process and through our own practices over how long? How long for you, Sandra? When I love that question. When was your birthing into the Chi world?
When I first met Master Lu, 1998.
Awesome. What about you, Jenny?
I've been a student for about 12 years, and I've been training directly with him for about 8 years.
Awesome. Beautiful. And yeah, for me, it was 2009 was my great birthing via Tao of Medical Qigong. So yeah, we all had our own little ways of opening up into this essence and this message, and have had these separate beautiful journeys of very much our own individual processing, because that's for me in particular, and I would love for you to speak to it. When I first launched into my training with Tao of Medical Qigong, I had a whole story in my head. I'm doing this for my professional, this is how I'm going to bring my work into the world. So I showed up at a very high level energy, spiritual, and then I get this message, on my journal. It said, from the spiritual perspective, there's no disease or illness. There's only undiscovered purpose. And there was like this part of me that was like, yes, I have no idea what that means. And then very quickly, what I discovered was like, wow, if I'm going to be resonating that message and guiding people to understand and transform with that message, I got to get there and here. And I had a lot of work to do. Yeah. And so Adobe wants to update and upgrade me. That's how quickly the upgrades and updates want to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And you got to respond. You got to respond to your whole family.
Those upgrades.
Flash up. When you get that message, it's like, all right, it's time to level up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really powerful realization that I realized again and again and again. And that as I continue my own upgrading and in my own life and experience, and I mean at every level, I mean in my own health and well-being, and especially like relationship has been a big thing coming up. My relationship with myself, my relationship with nature, my relationship with my 4 children, my husband, all of that. And connection is constantly mirroring and showing me, where I need, hey, shining the light right in there of where I need to level up.
Yeah.
So I would love for either of you to speak to your experience of that embodiment and whatever realizations you've had.
Well, I'm what you just said is exactly what weaving the web is to me, Melissa. It's about being aware of how it's all of those relationships. That is our web in 3D life, right? That's where we can see our energy moving and all of that happening on the 3D level, and learning through this system and the way that you're approaching your teaching, that all of that's starting on the invisible level. That's all of that, starting with my internal function and my own balance. That's such a gorgeous way to begin. Like, I'm going to start here, rooted in my foundation. I'm going to see all the threads of the web, reaching out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Melissa, as you were talking, the thing that came back to me was when I first met Master Lu, it was really, we used to have a little town newspaper, and there was this like, oh, come to this traditional Chinese medicine class. We have these herbs, and you're gonna learn how to lose this weight. And I'm like, yeah, me and my friend, we were like, yeah, let's go to that. And so, coming from this mother who had taught me about being deeply spiritual and about herbs, and just knowing that something around your house could help you or something in nature could help you, I was like, oh, that's me. Let me go to that, right? I had no idea at that. I was going to lose this 12 pounds they said I could get, right? I was like, I could get rid of these 12 pounds. But then it was like, what happened was I discovered that once I started to learn about my own chi, my own energy body, and really relate to myself as an energy being and start to discover what that feels like to have energy moving through you, knowing that you're an energy, I actually got in touch with a deeper desire to know my own history and culture, right? I got in touch with, wow, I really feel like I want to find this guy who was teaching about the Yoruba tradition. And I know that and I just started getting this urge to study things that were ancient Africa, just like study this. And it would not stop. And I literally went to a conference and met two people who knew the people that I was looking for. And then I ended up like, I was like, well, I could just go study with Master Lu more. And then I had this, and I went off and I did this whole like studying African tradition. And then my doctor said something to me about my spleen energy. And I was like, yeah, what's that Dragon's Way stuff I did? And so then I came right back around. You see, it's like the connections, they're always there, right? It's like, when we step in, then we start to see physically how they start to manifest in our life in different ways. So it's like I came right back around to Master Lu and studying with Master Lu and like seeing, then that gave me the space to see how it all fits, right? So I started to see his teaching me 5 elements. Then I discovered that there's this West African system of 5 elements that's almost identical to the Chinese one. And I was like, mind blown, right? So this kind of sense of everything being connected and feeling into that and just allowing yourself to know that even when there's trouble, it's connected to something good and that it's going to show up for you. That's one of the greatest gifts I've gotten from studying with Master Lu. It's like, even when there's trouble, there's good connected to it and it will show up. You just have to keep trusting and practicing, trusting your energy to get you there.
Yeah. And I love your story. So I think, for those of us who are new to this concept, it begins with awareness of those connections. And as your awareness starts to grow, it's honoring those little leaps. It's like following the threads. It's what you start to realize, oh, it's not just a single thread, it's this larger web connecting everything. And within that web, it's the good stuff that we can connect to when we're following something good, like when you were following, those leads that were going to lead you to this deep knowing of your ancestral roots. But also, when we're having these intense experiences that show up in our lives, that show up in our bodies, not only is the good resonating there, the message of the good there for you, but also the next step forward is connected in the web as well. So you'll start to be guided. And it's like following the little leads. I had working through some experiences. My son is having a very intense, he's an intense kiddo, and he tends to come face to face with himself at various different points in his timeline. And he's one of those places right now where he just wants to go to high school, but he's in 8th grade. So he's got to dive into this last year in 8th grade. And it's like, it has so much for him, but he's just kind of like, meh, I'm like, so as his mother, it's like, I could doing this, fighting him on this is only going to encourage the more fighting and shutdown. So it's like really calling me. First of all, it's like, it brings up a lot of emotion. So it's like, I've been allowing myself, okay, let's just be, with the feeling of that, because I'm not going to have clarity of where all those connections and the good are right now. And like the first day that this started percolating out, I just walked out into my yard, and it was like one thing after another that just started showing itself to me. I just found myself standing in front of a tree, and there was this huge, chunky green, yellow, and black caterpillar, like big. I'm like, hello, caterpillar. Yes. It's like, and of course, there's so many levels we could look at through the angles of 5 elements and what a caterpillar represents in terms of the cycles and changes of transformation. And it just, yeah, and that flexibility, exactly. And it's just, you know, even though I you know, was trying not to overthink it, just immediately I felt like this like lightning. Then I had a call with his teacher, and when she called, I had never spoken to her. She's from Atlanta, and her numbers were all these fours, and I was like, what? I couldn't deny there was this like numerology happening there. And she was beautiful. She's new to the school. My son's only been in school for 2 weeks, but like it wasn't like a call where like your son did this. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, I know him, I see him, and he's a leader, and I can see his frustration, and he needs to be challenged. I'm like, you get my boy. So it just was so beautiful to work through that energy, to have that show up. And then yesterday I had to have another conversation with him in another way of explaining. I'm like, I'm not going to fight him on this. But I talked to him about what's happening right now with the trees. I'm like, look, dude, you're on this path, right? So if we're going to draw the energy in and you want to see, what do you want to keep and what do you want to let go of in order to grow and move forward? There's certain things that if you hold on to them, they're going to make life harder, you know, certain patterns. So it just was like, I was able to explain it in a way, first of all, it felt good for me. And I can see that he got it. You know, it's like, you got a choice. You want to make this easy, you want to make this hard.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's just one example that, you know, I've experienced just in the past 48 hours of the power of aligning and feeling into, even when you have these kind of moments, it can feel like, rah, but you're still being supported. And when you can move through the emotion, you can start to feel into those connections that are there, and then really be able to tap in and receive. I would love for you, Jenny, if this is like percolated up anything that you would like to share.
Well, both of you are making me think of, so both of your stories are, you know, make me think of this picture of, I actually spent a long time watching a spider in her web and reconstructing her web after a storm. It was a huge web. She's a very sizable girl living on our porch. And after the storm, there was all these holes, all these rips through the web. So in the web, there are certain threads that the spiders put down that they can walk on without getting stuck on the sticky parts. And they have to stay on those paths to cross over all the sticky parts that they're putting out the sticky parts, right? But they can get stuck in their own sticky threads. And so I'm just hearing you, what I'm thinking of both of you are like, even though we know we are in this web of all these interconnected, sometimes sticky threads all around us, we still can only follow one thing at a time, right? I'm hearing Sandra, she followed one way and then she veered off onto another thread and came back around and then was back to the center again. And what you did with your son, kind of the same thing, Melissa, like, dude, you're going to get stuck in a lot of shit if you don't just like, let's see if we can follow our way through to one thing, get to the end of the one thing, and then we'll come back to the big goody juicy bug at the center that's waiting for you to grab it and take in all that nourishment. So I love this. Thank you for that. Those are both such beautiful examples. I think when we're in pain, you know, sometimes we're called to wake up to what's going on by a pain point. Hopefully it's a joy point. Hopefully it's a gratitude point and an appreciation point and a discovery point. Sometimes it's a pain point. You know, our pain is really here to say, hey, wake up. and and get moving. Find a thread and follow that thread and stay with that until you can move yourself out of this place, find the next juicy thing that's waiting for you. But sometimes we know the web is there. We're a little overwhelmed by all of that stuff that needs all of those repairs. She had to spend so much time going around and 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 around until she finally rebuilt that whole thing. But she still had to do it just one thread at a time.
Beautiful. And the piece of that I want to expand upon is we're not one spider. And the web isn't just our web.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we're like millions of spiders that
Yeah.
have a similar purpose in our connection. And we're supported by, there's networks that we can wrap our rational mind around in terms of like looking at it through 5 elements and other ways of seeing the interconnectedness. And then there's things we don't even, there are such higher realms that are still supporting and connecting us in different ways that are beyond our conscious level. So part of awareness of this, the web, weavers knowing their web is like, wow, okay, that's out there for me. I don't necessarily have to really know exactly what that looks like or what it sounds like or what it is, but it's there holding me. Mm-hmm. But the piece that I feel we're being called to right now is to amplify our, well, first of all, our conscious awareness that we are so held and supported, but also our conscious connections to the other spiders who are out there in different parts of the world. So like, case in point, Jenny's in Illinois, Sandra's in New Jersey, and I'm in Indiana. And yet here we are resonating and connecting into this similar message through our different practices and supporting other people and their awakening to the connection in the web, who then support other people and their awakening. So I said in my write-up on this that like, even though each of us have a practice that has a mission and a purpose, et cetera, and different programs, that doesn't mean that you're not an absolutely essential piece of this web. So it's just your presence resonating and connecting in and sharing your experiences and having your experiences that builds the web. So we're all doing this together. So being in this time where things can feel like there's nothing that's holding us together, other than fear and uncertainty, this awareness is so important because it's what's going to help us to get to the next level beyond that fear and uncertainty. So we get to a higher level of connection and cooperation with the bigger picture of what the here and now is trying to call us to.
Yeah, I think the interdependence for me is one of the most important parts of this whole thing, right? Like, just knowing, like I say, I grew up in Atlanta, like you're a kid's teacher, right? And I'm doing my life in New Jersey, but I know that there are these deep generational roots that support me that I don't even see, right? I see pictures of my grandparents because I have them around me. They're relatives and people that I don't know, right? But I know their energy is there. And I know that my family, right? I call them the people who have loved me all of my life, right? That feeling of somebody having loved and known you all of your life, it's like its own energy, right? It's also like a field. It's also another piece of the web that's supporting you. So for me, this kind of sense of I'm connected to something, I'm a part of something, actually helps me move through, like when the things are sticky and, right? And I don't know which way to go in the web, right? I'm like, oh, shoot, right? It's like, but I'm not alone. I have support. And so, I have to say that our Qigong practice really helps me root, helps me get back, right? I mean, these simple little things we do, people think, oh, so you just march around the room? Yep. Let me tell you, it changed my life. Yep. I'm good now. I'm ready to go. Right. Yep. I did. You just sat there and you did that breath. Yep. I sure did. Nobody knew I was there. Nobody knew I was doing it, but wow, it shifted everything for me. I'm ready to go now. Right. So, just kind of that that awareness of how there's this interdependence that's always supporting you, that's always there, that you can always access to move, right? To shift just a little bit. I like what Jenny was talking about earlier about these little things, right? Because from this, like, you make a small shift, but if you keep making a small shift every day, then eventually you have something magnificent you created, right? You just a little bit. It's a little bit you could do. And if everything in your desire to do for the day didn't happen, be so excited about what did happen and trust that, well, that didn't happen today. So today may not have been a day, but tomorrow could be, you know? So I love the interdependence for sure.
Love it. I love it. So as we wrap up, I'm gonna have you comment too, Jenny, before, but I'd love to hear about your program that's coming up next week.
Oh, so yes, next week I am doing a 3-day, 3 evenings, 7 to 7:45, 4 keys to elevate your work-life balance. And it's really all about like getting out of that sticky place and realizing that you can get out of the overwhelm and find your flow. And every time it happens, you can find your flow again, and you learn from the last time how to make it better. So I'm doing this for 3 nights, and it's really for the heart-led, high-achieving women who are so dedicated that they tend to overgive, overwhelm, and cut themselves off from their own energy source. So my goal is to reconnect them to their own inner energy source and all that's around them, so that they can create lives they love, where they're making an impact that all of us will benefit from. So we start next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm excited. I'm very excited about it.
If you need a wing woman for Thursday, I'm your girl.
All right, thank you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm opening a few spots in a program starting the first week in October called the Real Women, Real Healing Inside Out Energy Rebuild, for folks who are just getting, we're spending more and more time and resources managing fatigue, managing conditions, managing emotional ups and downs, kind of thinking about the rest of your life and wondering if you're going to have the energy that you really need to do what you want to do. We're going to be working together for 3 months to end 2021 with great energy and a strong foundation under us. So whatever comes our way, we won't get knocked over. Yeah, that's what I'm up to. And gosh, I'm so honored and thrilled to be here. I just love you guys tremendously. You're such good teachers for me. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, I just want to end by celebrating. So the 3 of us have been doing our own weaving in our different spaces for a while, but we were granted and gifted the opportunity to work together. And I want to speak to when you do connect with somebody, again, it doesn't have to be through work. It could just be through like, oh, how do I figure out how to get my kids to 3 different places at once, collaboration and cooperation together, So when the 3 of us came together, it was magic, right? It was like there were so many things that would be like communicated without communicating. Just like we had this structure, but then it's like we'd rework it every single day. And it was magical. It was like a whole 10-day thing. And it's like, now I look at it, I'm like, wow, okay. So that's the power. Like we accelerate, we amplify when we consciously do make these choices to connect in and support each other. So grateful that we had that opportunity. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Wow, great.
And I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, love you guys.